This is book 22 of the Iliad. What you need to be paying attention for here is the examples of divine intervention. We see that both in the gods at war and in the way Hector dies. The beginning of this book, we are told that several gods have actually joined into the battle. Aphrodite, Ares, they're all there. They're taking sides with either the Greeks or the Trojans, depending on who they favor, and fighting like mortals. Some of them are playing more active roles than others in determining or intervening in the fate with this. Athena is helping Achilles wherever she can, and Apollo is very, very influential in helping the Trojans. This includes drawing Achilles off by posing as a Trojan soldier and taunting him, and then running away. And when Achilles follows in a temper, Apollo turns back and taunts him again, saying, "Oh, can't you tell a god when you see one, Achilles? Do you really think you're so special? Blah, blah, blah." Achilles is very annoyed by this, and he tells Apollo that if he weren't an immortal, he would actually avenge the insult before returning back to the Trojan walls. But by this point in time, all of the Trojans have escaped into the safety of the city. Hector's parents do not want him to go out. But again, much like his honor has shown us all the way through, Hector feels he really has to go join the people in the battle. He meets Achilles, and Achilles starts to chase him, so they run in their chariot. They run around and around and around the walls of Troy. Athena, deciding that this is not behavior befitting of a hero, disguises herself as Hector's brother and tells him he should stand and fight Achilles and that he will help him. So, believing he has backup in his brother, Hector agrees and turns to fight Achilles. Just as the fight gets going, he realizes that this brother that he thought was backing him up isn't there because Athena has disappeared. So Achilles and Hector battle, and it starts going poorly. Hector requests of Achilles that Achilles not desecrate his body, but he return it to his family in honor if he dies in this fight. Achilles outright refuses. He is angry and he is vengeful, and he is not going to honor Hector in any way, shape, or form. So he deals Hector a death blow. Hector again requests that Achilles treat his body kindly for the sake of his family, and prophesies Achilles' death at the hands of Paris and Apollo. Achilles turns around and says he doesn't care. So we see another example of Achilles' temper in epic proportions. And the rest of this is continued in our final selection. With books 23 through 24, where you need to be familiar with Achilles' revenge and how this shows rage and pride. We need to see Patroclus' funeral and how this shows the enduring heart. And the ransom of Hector, finally showing the capstone of heroic society. As soon as Hector is dead, Achilles takes something and pierces Hector's ankle so he can thread a cord through it and ties it back to the back of his chariot. He starts riding his chariot around the walls of Troy, dragging Hector's body behind him. This, of course, upsets the Trojans a great deal because that's a good amount of disrespect, and you would expect that the body would get very beaten up by that. Afterwards, he takes the body back to the Greek camp and dumps it in the dust and leaves it for the dogs to feed on. He says he will not burn the body for a funeral, but he wants to let it rot and be devoured. Apollo and Aphrodite preserve Hector's body from the dogs in decay. Aphrodite fights off the dogs. Apollo keeps the decay at bay. While this is happening, Achilles gathers all of his forces together to feast and make offerings and have a funeral that honors Patroclus. He is trying to move on and bury his friend and kind of buck up under all the grief that he's given way to. He builds a funeral pyre and he tries to light it, but the fire will not light. The implication is, the way they put together his mistreatment of Hector's body and his attempts to honor Patroclus, the implication is that because he has not honored Hector as a hero should have been honored following being taken in battle, that Patroclus cannot be honored because Achilles is the one trying to do it. He ends up making further offerings to the god, and Iris, a messenger of Zeus, gets the winds to help so Patroclus can be cremated. We have the intervention of the gods in this one. but also we're starting to see more and more the cost of Achilles' rage, and the cost being that he cannot even properly honor his friend because his anger has taken hold. Apollo chooses to guide Priam, Hector's father, to the camp of the Myrmidons, and Priam offers ransom and begs the return of Hector's body. Achilles initially refuses this wealth, but Priam starts talking about Achilles' father. He says, you should be thinking of your own father and how your father would feel in his old age with his only remaining son coming home from battle dead. Would you not want your father to have the comfort of an honorable funeral for your child? And he keeps going with the, I know you've lost, I know you hurt, that kind of thing. So they share their grief over the loss of those that they loved. Achilles then chooses to accept the ransom for Hector's body, and Priam departs in peace. The Greeks and the Trojans will call a truce at this point, and they bury their dead, and Achilles will rest from battle. He has Briseis back, and all seems to be well. The ending of the Iliad, at this point, comes full circle from where the conflict started. The conflict in the Iliad, of course, started when Agamemnon refused ransom to Chryses over Chryseis. He would not ransom Chryses' daughter, and so he was cursed by the gods to not be able to have victory. There was pride, there was anger. This pride leaked over into a conflict between Achilles and Agamemnon where they refused to forgive each other, and everything really went downhill from there. People lost great amounts, both honor and life and finances. So that is coming of another father to ransom another child to Achilles, when there is pride and anger involved, and that ransom being accepted allows this kind of curse to end. There's not going to be the same sort of bloodshed we have seen. The Trojan War will continue for another several years because we know Achilles is not going to make it home, but they have put this conflict to rest, coming full circle. A ransom was initially refused, and now it's been accepted, and there's peace. At this point, you need to do discussion questions and quizzes on Edmodo, and congratulations, you are done with the Iliad.